Good morning, my friends. Welcome to a morning discussion on a random Sunday in January. As I notice, I'm getting dripped upon here as the morning frost melts away. I haven't done a lot of morning videos in a while, and I used to do them before work. But Sunday is my day of leisure, although I have many things to get done here. And it's been pretty frosty and cold, but I said once it warms up, I'll get around to doing some stuff, getting some things done. Because my life is pretty, let me just say, average, I guess. You know, I get up at 6 in the morning and I go to work and I come home and I have a family life. We eat dinner, go to bed, do the repeat, go on vacation when I can in the summer. And, I like my life. There's some aspects about it, of course. We'd all like to have a little more of this or that, especially when it comes to money. But honestly, even if I had enough money, it wouldn't be much. And I think about this because there's more than enough to go around. There are more than enough resources and funds to go around in this world. The idea of scarcity is what keeps people in fear, and people through my generation and even into today's world are constantly being convinced that you just need to work harder, to get ahead. But it's become more and more difficult for people to attain the goals of home ownership or, even buying a nice pickup, $80,000. It's insane what things, the disparity of wealth has come to, where there's people that can afford and a majority of people that can't afford the basic things that people want in life. So people settle for less. And meanwhile, when I was young, we would talk about millionaires and being like, these people are millionaires. And then I remember when you started to hear about billionaires at some point in the 90s, it wasn't even something that really occurred to us. A single person with worth 1,000 millions, wow, that's a lot. And now we're talking about almost trillionaires, which is a million millions. The insane amount of money that single people are in charge of is mind-blowing. But I think the average person either just can't process how much money that is, because I sure as hell can't. The numbers are astounding. But on the other hand, also, it becomes an issue of faith. What do you do, right? What can you do? I mean, you just got to hope they're going to be good people and do the right thing, because you're not going to change the fact that there's billionaires and that people get richer and richer. And often when people talk shit about billionaires, they're accused, usually first and foremost, of being somehow jealous. And that goes back to what I said about how not everybody is looking to, attain that kind of wealth. But I remember Warren Buffett, saying once that it's not the money, it's the addiction to getting the money. And I'm sure that's true with a lot, but he's also not the kind of guy who goes and screams about his life on Twitter or Facebook. He's a quiet billionaire, right? And then we have loud billionaires. And so I've had this question rolling around, in my head for the last few years. Why are we celebrating billionaires? Why do we think that they are good for society? And I know that the reason, of course, I don't talk about this is obvious, because it just brings forth a lot of emotions. People are triggered by emotions. If you even discuss rich, they think you're attacking their guy, which right now, tomorrow, actually, coincidentally, I kind of forgot that, but tomorrow's the inauguration of Trump for his second term. And everybody's just like making the biggest deal about it. It's either the, I told you, yeah, Trump's going to save the day, or the other side that's like, he's going to destroy, everything. I know people who think that there will never be another election again. All this, I just kind of laugh off, because I know that in 4 years, we'll go back to, I would like to say we'll go back to just, the same old crap for another 4 years. But honestly, at this point, it seems like there's nothing really being done for the American people, because too much is being done to argue with the other side and bringing in, all of these extremely wealthy people into the office. And I don't recall which president said this in the past, but he was saying, once money mixes with, the presidency and politics, the people should really beware. And this has been ongoing for decades, money in politics. It costed millions of dollars to run an election when I was a kid. But now it costs, billions of dollars to run an election overall. And the entirety of the costs spent is ludicrous. And it's kind of like several issues within, our politics have to do with lobbying. And the fact that there aren't any real rules. Lucy wants to say hi. Say hi, Lucy. Hey, baby. Yeah. Nobody wants to follow the, have basic rules and laws against things like lobbying, which many other countries, many other Western nations do have, laws against, politics mixing with business. But in the U.S., we've always had kind of a blurred line there. I just wanted to say that I just watch it unfold. I don't have fears and worry about it because there's nothing to worry about. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen with this country. But I definitely don't want to see a future where we celebrate and trust billionaires just because they tell us that they're good people. Because here's the thing. I think that honesty, and everyone has their own limit on what they consider to be values. Everyone tolerates a certain amount of lies. For me, I feel like you can't become a billionaire without lying or defrauding or screwing somebody over in a way that you could do better. In other words, whether people know it or not, whether it's just sociopath or even psychopath in some instances, who knows? But the fact that many people can't seem to really understand what people need. It's all about them. And I figure that's the only way you can really get that wealthy. And of course, you can throw a few charities out there, and things like even like guys like Bill Gates. You hear, oh yeah, Bill Gates Foundation. These charities. Then you find out that they're running their money through it to not be. I'm not going to get into the specifics because I'm not going to smear anybody because I don't know the specifics. I forget, but basically, they're making money off of the charities. It's a crazy world, and the more money you have, the more you can make. And meanwhile, you have employees who, the old joke about, say, Amazon workers, pissing in bottles and not being able to take breaks and being run like machines and now being replaced by machines. And then you have a guy like Bezos wearing a fucking cowboy hat and flying up into space with these other rich fucks. And I think most people kind of are disgusted. A lot of people are disgusted by that, but a lot of people do celebrate it. But when it comes to a guy like Elon Musk, for example, who bought all his companies, and didn't really invent anything himself, yeah, he could be a genius, he could be a smart guy, but the guy, to me, I think lying about video games, which is something recently that came out that claimed him to be the world's top player, and the gaming community said bullshit. That's just wild to me. It's like, it just keeps getting worse for people. They just make themselves look dumber and dumber, ultimately because they want to be loved. And how is that good for anybody? Good for the world? Or you can just censor people that you don't like, which is another thing he did. Look, we all want to have a hero. I would like to believe that there are billionaires out there who have all of the people's interest at heart and actually want to make a better world. But even if they have the intention of making a better world, I feel like their decisions are more self-serving than anything. And therefore, I can't really find any that I respect in any way, except, of course, hey, it's a great achievement to make that amount of money. I mean, yeah, you'll go down in history as being one of the richest people in history. But really, what did you do for your serfs, your helpers, your servants, and the peasants in your community? It's kind of like when rappers get really rich and then they just leave the ghetto and they never fucking look back. Some go back and help people that they grew up with and help the communities that they rap about, and others just off, don't give a shit anymore. Like, money changes people. You can't deny that. We see it all the time. And even I'm sure all of you know somebody who has money, whether it be somebody who won a lottery or got a lot of money through an inheritance or has a trust fund, whatever. It makes them weird if they're honest. It's like it makes them feel weird rather. Anybody I know who has money, I don't know, not even like even $1 million or access to a few $1,000,000, something like that. The ones I've talked to have been like, yeah, it just sucks. I don't like, it's like you're worried about it all the time. You're worried about hanging on to it. And that's why I think a lot of people get addicted to making more, because they want to hang on to it, and therefore they think more will make them more safe. And if you've been poor your whole life, or at least kind of living check to check, or you've gone like I used to the grocery store with the calculator to buy your groceries, making sure that every penny counts. These things humble you, and then when you do have some money, you start to really appreciate it. And I think it's kind of damaged me, honestly, being so broke for so many years, that now that I make decent money as a carpenter, and my wife and I have a savings, and we're trying to save up to get our property. But there's also part of me that's afraid to spend money on like anything, even if it's something I need, like buying new clothes or something. And I want to change that, because it's the mentality of saying I can't afford this, that it's more important, I think, to feel good about ourselves in the meantime than looking forward to something else. But my point here is that most of us peasants have dreams and something we want to obtain. For some people it's a place in the city. For me it's a place in the country. For some people it's just traveling or going to another country, whatever it might be. And we save and we scrape and we try to get by and go on vacations and still have fun in the meantime while saving for our bigger dreams. And you talk to one another about your ideas and the things you want to do, but then you have these millionaire communities of people who they take themselves way too seriously. I think maybe that's the key aspect. Their hoity-toity bullshit, setting up all their fancy dinners, having a certain dress code and manners and utensils set in a certain place. They're trying to hang on to this semblance of being more refined, in a sense, or more evolved than the average person. And a lot of billionaires, millionaires, they put on this bullshit act in their communities. And yeah, maybe it sounds like hating, but God, it's just, I don't know. To each his own. I guess we need all types of groups, right? But I would like to think that I would completely accept, even a millionaire with even 1 out of 100 people. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't have anything against wealth if that was how common it was. But when you're talking, all of that being sucked into the billionaires' pockets, all of the innovations and things that we've invented and created in America that your parents and your grandparents, worked to create, building and designing these machines and systems and software products to get to where we are now. The whole idea was to better America and make it better for Americans, which was supposed to give us more time, more leisure time, right? So the idea was to help mechanize things so we could have more leisure time and everyone could have the resources they need, which is completely available right now. We have it set up to where we dump tons of fruits, vegetables, milk, all kinds of shit, because it's not set up for the consumer. It's set up for these huge, like restaurant industries, and we don't have the methods in place to make sure that the most of our resources are utilized properly. Because meanwhile, the grocery prices keep getting higher, and we're getting price gouged, plus inflation. And not to complain, because I'm grateful that my wife and I can get by. I mean, we have decent wage in this state, but it's really high tax rate here in Washington. It's like 9% for sales tax, and we can go across the bridge into Oregon, but they don't have a sales tax. But they're trying to get one now. But everything just adds up so quick, man. And then you see these guys who are manipulating policy for everyone else, who have more money than they could ever possibly spend. and where their whole focus seems to be on that type of money and control and the power it brings. And then we see countless people celebrating this. I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. Maybe somebody could explain it to me properly one day. I often will hear people say, well, look at what these people have accomplished. Look at the businesses they've run, and you haven't done that, or, other people can't do that. And I think, well, yeah, if your dad owned an emerald mine, you might be prone to have a few bucks and be able to come up with some shit. But then he bought, PayPal, he bought Tesla, SpaceX. He didn't start any of these companies. And now this guy's like going to be implementing policy in the country. We're living a meme. We're living in a weird time. I think that we'll look back on this and say, okay, this was maybe the decade where people realized billionaires really don't care. Because I don't see things getting better for the average person. But we'll see. I do have hope, and I try to hold out positivity as much as possible. And it probably sounds like a hate speech against, billionaires, but I just had to get that out because it's something I feel strongly in my heart, that we need to be super suspicious about people who make promises but have been known to be liars. And we need to stop the division among ourselves when we are all the working class. If you're another blue-collar worker that gets up and goes to work, I don't care what your political views are. We don't talk about that shit at work, and you probably don't either. I mean, if you agree with people, of course there's always political banter at work, but generally you can get along and be civil, even if you disagree. But online, it's made us look like assholes. And so I'm hoping we grow out of it. I think we're already seeing the first signs of people realizing that most of the time, if you're on Twitter arguing, it's 62% bots or something. So you're probably arguing with a fucking robot anyway. So anyway, just be more human contact, touch grass, spend some time out in the woods, get back to earth, get back to nature, get back to knowing people, because really, the people you work with, your family, your community, they're the only ones that really matter in the big picture. You don't have to worry about what's going on in some other city somewhere else, but the media has just made it 24/7 news coverage of what's happening in this city or that. So be well, be safe, don't worry, and take it one day at a time. Peace and love. Be well.